Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with a very special edition of the Ranchers Thursday Lunchtime series. I'm Rosalind Biggs. I'm a veterinarian and a beef cattle extension specialist. Dr. Beck, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Beck. I'm a state beef cattle extension specialist out of the animal science department at OSU.
And then we also have Dr. Dave Lallman. Dr. Lallman is out in Texas with our guest of honor today. And we will get started. Dr. Lallman, whenever you all are ready, I'll let you start on your video. Turn that video on. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure having you on these Ranchers Thursday Lunchtime series, and this is one you don't want to miss. You may, in fact, want to take a listen to the recording after the fact, and as always, those are housed on beef.okstate.edu. It is really our honor to have a living legend join us today. Originally from Hydro, Oklahoma, Minnie Lou Bradley earned her degree in 1953 and became the first woman to enroll and be awarded a bachelor's in animal husbandry at the then Oklahoma Agricultural and Mechanical College, which of course is now Oklahoma State. It was her achievements as a member of the livestock judging team that launched her into a path of success. She was the top beef cattle collegiate judge at the 1952 American Royal Livestock Judging Competition, and later went on to be first in sheep, second in horse, and high individual at the Chicago International Competition in 1952, which also we just learned had some featured on Good Morning America after that as well. But the real story here is her dedication and commitment and really impact to the beef cattle industry, starting with about 20 cows and 3,300 acres. Mrs. Bradley and her husband Bill started the Bradley 3 Ranch near Childress, Texas. Mrs. Bradley, along with her daughter and son-in-law Mary Lou and James Henderson, operate the ranch still to this day, which is one of the nation's most envied seed stock and commercial Angus operations. The ranch runs right now about 400 registered Angus cows on about a 13,000 acre spread. Additionally, it's worth noting in 1986, Mrs. Bradley and her daughter Mary Lou launched B3R Country Meats, a beef merchandising program that grew into a company recognized worldwide for natural Angus beef. That company has since sold, but is certainly notable in the vision of Mrs. Bradley. She was named a graduate distinction from the OSU Department of Animal Science in 1988 and presented the Master Breeder Award from the department in 2010. She was also named a Ferguson College of Agriculture Distinguished Alumnus in 2015 and then later an OSU Distinguished Alumnus in 2023. She was listed in Beef Magazine in both 2004 and 2014 as one of the top 40 cattlemen. In 2006, she was inducted into the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame. And in 2014, she was inducted into the Saddle and Sirloin Portrait Gallery in Lexington, Kentucky. Mrs. Bradley has spent a lifetime working to create a profitable bull for the commercial producer and quality end products for consumers. She's undoubtedly a living legend, and it's an honor to have her here today on the Rancher series. Dr. Lallman, Dr. Beck and I are going to close down our videos, let the feature be there with you all in Texas. We will encourage our participants so that you can get the best picture. You may want to adjust your view to a speaker view. That should be in your upper right-hand corner. If you click there, if you want to make that adjustment, that'll make the speaker view large for you on your computer. So with that, Dr. Lallman, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Biggs. It's a real pleasure to be here with Minnie Lou Bradley. Minnie Lou, thank you for spending this time with us today.
It's my enjoyment. I'll have fun today.
Yes, we intend to have fun. For those of you listening, we've got a number of just questions that we'd like to sort of just get Minnie Lou to respond to. And so we're going to work our way through those. But as we're doing that, if you have a question or comment you would like to add, feel free to go ahead and type those in the question and answer or the chat section. And if we have time at the end, we'll try to get to some of those, but we'll just have to see how it goes and play it by ear. So, Minnie Lou, my first question for you, if you don't mind, just giving us a little bit of an idea of what it was that got you started in agriculture.
I would like to say something first.
Of course.
Oklahoma and Texas are the two leading cattle in the nation, cow-calf operations. I know all of our hearts go out to the southeastern United States. And I just want everybody to know that we're all thinking of those people.
Good.
They send cattle out here for us to feed, to process, and it's just something we need to do. Help them all we can.
Yeah.
Give them a spirit. But to get back to you, it's probably, now I'm having to guess a lot of this because I was 5 years old. And my sister had to go for a serious operation, and my folks had to be gone for several months. So I went to live with my grandparents, and their 9th child was a senior in high school. So he took me to school with him, and I was a first grader at 5, and he'd pick me up. And I don't know if it was FFA then or just agriculture. But anyways, he loaded me in their cars, pickups, or whatever. And every evening, those boys would go out to one of the farms to see their projects. And I went with them, me. And I did for a whole semester. And I think that's where I got it started. That I'd see pigs one day, I'd see cattle one day, I'd see wheat growing one day, and the boys would just take care of me. And the boys have taken care of me ever since. So I kind of think that's what it was. And then when I was 9, my granddaddy had gone through that when they had the Depression and too many cattle and they killed them, on the places. He just couldn't go back in the cow business. He just killed him. So he started shipping in by rail, Hereford steers, wean calves, and 2 railroad double deck of lambs. And he and Daddy would feed them out, but they just run them on the fields, high gear or cornfield, whatever, like that. And I told my granddaddy, I said, I think they're having a lamb show in Oklahoma City in April. I sure would like to go. And so he said, okay, there's several hundred here. And if you'll pick the 10 you want, I'll give them to you and we'll go to the show. So I fed them from fall to April. And Granddaddy loaded me up in an old trailer in an old Pontiac that he drove. And we went to Oklahoma City. We got over there and he said, this is not a kid show. This is an adult show. And I said, well, I'm entered. Well, I happened to win. I got the blue ribbon, and that blue ribbon just set everything off. Oklahoma City Times came out, put me on the front page as the 9-year-old that beat the and from then on, our county agent lived too far from us. So the FFA instructors, when I got from 9 on, they took care of me. I have a lot of respect for those FFA teachers because whoever it was, they took me on.
The die was set then at the age of 9. That's really neat. So we know, and a lot of our guests today are Oklahoma State alumni. Would you mind telling us what led to your decision to come to school at Oklahoma State University, which was Oklahoma A&M at the time?
Well, it's probably the only school I knew about. And then, I was about first generation were kids who went to college. If you think back. And then it was right during, well, I graduated right after the Second World War was declared. I mean, over. So I went through all that. But I think really the thing was when I wanted to judge every Saturday if I could. I mean, I just loved to go to those field days. And they had field days all over Oklahoma at the time. And I'd try to beg somebody to take me, whether it be the FFA teacher or be my dad or my granddaddy or whoever. And I just imagine that Oklahoma A&M had representatives there. I can't tell you for sure, but that's the only school I ever thought I'd go to, the only one I knew of. And I'll never forget the day that my folks took me up there and dumped me out. I'll never forget that.
Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Well, you know, ignorance is really good at times. And I was so ignorant. I didn't know anything about college. I surely didn't know that I was the only girl. I mean, that's never entered my mind. Never entered my mind that I was going to be the only girl.
Wow.
And so it just, you know, I just went there and caused a lot of problems, I think, within the animal husbandry department at that time. I'm not saying they didn't try me a little bit. I remember, as Dr. Walter said in meats, he said, well, you're the littlest one in the meats, so you can get on the floor and scrape all the fat off these hides. While the other boys, were cutting them up. I was sitting down on the floor. Dr. Hillier and swine, I don't know if he did or not, but anyways, he said he had a test going with a professor in England, and he had to have sow's milk because they was trying to decide on the value of sow's milk. So he said, we'll twitch the old sows, but you're going to have to milk them. So I was trying to milk these sows into these test tubes. I just thought that was part of it. I didn't know. So, but everybody was really nice to me. The professors had never had a lady in the class, and they had slept with a word or two and apologized. And I said, just forget it. I'm here. I'm in the class. Just treat me like that.
Yeah.
But it was really Dr. Webster, that's headed of the chemistry department, that kept me in school. I had no idea what a test tube was. I didn't know anything about chemistry, and they put me in chemistry with the vets and the doctors. I might have had a 5 average, maybe, at midterm. So I went to him and I said, I guess I better drop out. He said, no, you're not going to drop out. He said, I'm getting you a tutor. We're going to start all over at midterm. And I had 13 hours to be in chemistry.
Well,
but he wasn't in the agriculture department, but he taught agriculture chemistry.
yes.
And I'll always remember, he's the one that said, no, you're not. You're going to stay and you're going to make it. So,
He had your back too.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, would you tell us a little bit about your experiences as a member, first female member of the livestock judging team?
Well, of course, I worked out just like the boys did. I mean, I never missed a minute. And to kind of guarantee something, I went out for the meats team too. And I stayed in Willard Hall all by myself during Christmas break. And it was a spooky place. And of course, I had to walk everywhere. And Dr. Walters came to me. He said, Minnie Lou, you got to decide which way you're going. If you're going to go meat or you're going to go livestock. And I said, well, my true love, and I think I'm much better in livestock than I am in meats. And he was so thankful that I dropped out. So we got ready to go to Colorado, to Denver. That was the first one. I had the scores, but my name wasn't on the list, and my heart was broken. I couldn't figure out. And Mr. Bratcher called me in and said that the reason my name wasn't up there, that they'd never had a girl, and they didn't think the judges would be fair with me on giving reasons. So they were leaving me at home. It really, really got to me. But I just kept going. And so Fort Worth came up, and I went, and I knew my name had been on top for every breakout. And so he called me in again, and he said, well, we've met with the president, we've met with school, the head of the students, the lady deals, all that, and we can't find a thing that says you can go or you can't go. But we're going to let you go. And this is what I remember so bad. Was he told me when we got to Fort Worth, he said, I want to have breakfast with you. And the boys were going to find their own breakfast. It was in Texas hotel. And we sit down there in just a table for two. But across was a table for 6 or 8, I don't know. I knew every one of those. They were college coaches. I had memorized, I'd gotten their pictures. I knew who they were. I can name them today. And they started talking. And I guess they had a meeting. I guess they had an annual meeting of the coaches in Chicago. And so they said, oh, and they'd talk loud enough for us to hear. And they started criticizing Mr. Bratcher that he had gotten up and said he would never carry a girl. Da, 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 da. He said, I said every one of them. And so they just kept on. And I said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that I've caused all this. I didn't realize that I was putting the college in a position. You know, I was putting their name on a line. And I felt so bad about it. I didn't, that wasn't my intention. I just wanted to be, you know. So we get out we stopped, got inside in our little deal we hauled in. I think poor Suburbans, what were they? Anyway, they weren't as big as Suburbans. Anyway, we unloaded behind the cattle barn. And Dr. Darlow showed up. And he was the fear of God. He put the fear of God in every boy. But he just left me alone. So he said, everybody go in, but I got to talk to her. And I got back. And he said, you know what's happening today. You are the first, but you will be the last if you don't come through today. And I said, yes, sir. I understand. And I had a pretty good day. And then that spring, I was the top one in Little International. And I've got the picture. I think it maybe is in the Animal Science today of him. And that Mr. Bratcher handed me that gold lapel pin that they made into a locket for me. And they were both smiling. But from then on, Dr. Darlow was my biggest coach. I mean, he couldn't do enough for me. And that was with Mr. Bratcher too. So I had a good time. They treated me very good.
That's my favorite story that you tell, one of my favorites. That's why we say that you broke many glass ceilings. You know, you are a trailblazer, and that's one example, you know, of going through rough times and difficult situations that have never been tried before. And you did, not only did you do well, which he said you needed to do, you just went out and won the whole thing. Right? How awesome. I mean, that's just awesome. Okay, my next question for you. What was the condition of the range at Bradley 3 Ranch when you started out, and what did you do to change it?
Well, ignorance is great. I had never been on a ranch in my life. I was raised in central Oklahoma. Daddy had some wheat, he had some cotton, he had three cows. I milked 2 cows all my life, and then Daddy milked 3. We sold cream, we had chickens, and we had cattle. But I'd never been on a ranch. And so I worked for the Angus Association for 2 years after I got out of college. And I learned 2 things. Second week I was at work there, I was the only one in the office, and an old gruff voice. I got a phone call. And it was a rancher from West Texas. And I'd never really been to West Texas, like San Angelo and on west. And he said, young lady, never forget, I could just picture him. And he said, I've been a Hereford breeder all my life. I'm thinking about using a few Angus bulls. Could you find me some? I said, well, sure. I didn't know where it's going. I didn't know anything. I said, I'm sure I can. Words I'll never forget was, are you going to find me the kind that make me money or lose me money? And it dawned on me, is there 2 kinds? And then after 1.5 years watching people in the show ring and all that, I thought, yes, there is. Anyway, to get back to the ranch. So I'd been going with this young man, and he was raised on a ranch outside of Wichita Falls. And his daddy called me. He was in Korea then. And his daddy called and said, I hear you might get married. I said, well, we talked about it. I don't know. He said, well, come down. I'm going to start looking at a ranch for you. And he brought me up. You've been down that road yourself. It's a long ways. Yeah. It was the worst shape, but I didn't know. So we started out looking at this place. And he finally, when we got around to North Jonah, of course, I didn't know. I didn't know because first ranch I'd ever been on. So he got down on his knees, pulled out his pocket knife, and dug up the roots. He said the roots are alive, but there wasn't anything on top. Of course, it's 1955. Well, 54, before the fall of 54. So, anyways, he said, I think it's a good buy. Well, I didn't know. So he called my daddy. He said, I want you to come down and see where these kids may be living. And we packed a lunch, and Daddy and my mother met us. My daddy pulled me off and he said, Minnie Lou, you're going to starve plumb to death on this outfit. Because the old house was in really, really bad shape. You couldn't use any of the water. We had to haul all the water. Of course, there was no telephone. There's no roads. It was just a little trail. And he said, then after we bought it, I got to looking, and nobody had lasted over 9 years on it. They'd all gone broke. Well, we're just getting ready to have our 70th year here out there. But I learned to windmill. I learned to throw my leg over a leg of the windmill and try to use both hands at one time. We had to fence, we had to windmill, we had to do everything, trying to fight the bush. It's been a long, but that drove us to try everything we could, to improve. And I'll never forget, an old cowboy was helping me with dishes one day. He had a 5th grade education. And my father-in-law had just been named the top conversation man in Wichita County. He said, you and Rusty Bradley are the 2 poorest grass people I know. Just shocked me. I thought we were really good trying to improve, but we'd been there 20 years and we still hadn't made much improvement. And he said, because you understock and you overgraze. And he had to explain that to me. And what I got, that man had been horseback all his life from his 5th grade. He learned to observe. He observed a lot better than we did. And we were horseback a lot. But he was right. We were understocking so much trying to get the grass better that we had let the cows become selective, just like if you have ice cream or fig Newton, which I never did like, one of the two. They take the ice cream. And so we decided, okay, you're probably right. And then several years later, the FFA teacher here in Childress came up, the collars to put on the cows' necks that would radio back and tell you where they grazed every 10 minutes for so. That was the eye opener for us. They were taking the easy way on this worst pasture we have, real rough cedar. We call it cedar. It's redberry juniper, and it's rough country. Well, they was only using 10% of the pasture because they were going around the fence lines, the roads, and so all that was going. It wouldn't waste. So we went in there, found the money. We have to take redberry juniper out by the roots. We can't spray for it. We can't, just cut it off. We got to take it out by the roots. Yeah. And it's very, very expensive. It cost us that 10 times what we gave for the ranch per acre to clear it. And where on earth the side oak grandma that Bill's granddaddy talked about that was up to his stirrups when he came from XIT Ranch to Wichita County. He said, this used to be tall grass country. We're turning it back to tall grass country as we can. So it's been a long, long time. We've gotten into a lot of experiments with different chemical companies. We're working now with one on mesquite. So it's, and now we had 9 waters at the time. We've got 45 now. We've done different things. We have one well that's just real powerful. It's not good water. It's bad water. You have to teach a cattle to drink it if they're not, But we pipeline that all across the north end. We put in more, as we dig a well now, we do solar pumps because of ease of working on them and everything. We're digging, and we're not really good earth tank people because we have sinkholes and we lose calves once in a while in sinkholes. But we're working to, and we've gotten several, they've awarded us several deals nationally even for conservation and trying to grow grass, but we're trying to get it back to that tall grass. Yeah. And it's just been, we've gone from, couldn't run 250 cows, and now we go to the south end and do intensive grazing, and then as we calve, we move them to the north end for winter because they have breaks, the deep canyons and all. So now we're running about 400 cows. So we're going with the deal. The things that I really want to talk about is that a cow is an individual. We can't run them as a herd. We've got to know the production on each cow. It's like that book that says you cannot improve what you do not measure. I think that is so true. And so we set up a goal for our cows years ago that they had to wean 50% of their body weight every 12 months or they're gone. And somebody told me, if you can name your cow, you're going to lose money. And that's about right. So I have no names on our cows. We have numbers on them, but we do not have names. And we're heartless. We're very heartless. They don't produce, they're gone. And I think today we've got probably one of the most fertile herds, you know, but we've gone SPA data, if you're acquainted with it. That set us up to know how to measure.
Yes.
So that's just a very short version of some of the things we've done.
Yes, well, I was there yesterday.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I witnessed many of those improvements yesterday morning where James toured me around, and it struck me that we are encouraging people today to weigh their cows, especially seed stock producers, and turn that data in to the breed associations. And it's difficult. It's one of the items measured for national cattle evaluation where they have the fewest data turned in. But we need more people doing that. How long has your family been weighing your cows?
Since 1961 or 62. We were before they had the portable scales. And we were we had a pair of scales we got with the ranch. But, you know, for truckload loads. And Texas A&M got into this, and they had portable scales. And so 2 PhDs had come up and verify our weights and age and all that. And then we finally got a pair of the most, what we call portable scales there was, because they didn't put wheels on them. And I learned how to put a pipe under them and, you know, roll them and then get them on the trailer. So for Christmas one year, my father-in-law got me a pair of portable scales.
With wheels.
And yes, with wheels. And we've been weighing the cows the same day we wean the calf. And she's required to wean 50% of her body weight. And we've been able to go, if they don't, they're gone.
Tremendous. And if they're open, they're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're heartless, but it's that's what you have to do, because that cow's a few years ago, as a spa said, it cost over $1,000 to keep a cow. And these old big cows they've got, that's about a third more it's going to cost you. There's no way she can make it up. Fact is, I figured it up one time. If a cow loses a calf or doesn't come in, she loses 1.5 calf in her lifetime. There's no way she can make that up. So you have to run it as a business.
Yes.
You love your land, you love your cattle, but you got to make them mind. They've got to work for you.
Excellent. Really good. So what other things are you the most proud of that you have improved in your cattle? We've talked about fertility. What other things?
Well, everything that they came up with. Of course, when I got out of school, dwarfism was rampant. In fact, Mr. Walker that owned Angus Valley Farms got me to take a leave of absence from a job in Texas and go on a trip for him. I went into 22 states, 60 farms to see what his bulls were doing. We came home. He knew the dwarfism was bad. Colleges, all of them, it doesn't matter which one. They were throwing those calves, killing them, throwing them out behind the barn, not telling anybody. So one of the greatest things that's ever happened is when we've gotten DNA and we can identify these bad deals before they get rampant. But it was really, really bad. And so what we did, we had used a bull we thought was really popular. And a son of this bull. And we began to have calves out of the first Angus cows we ever bought when we went in the Angus registered business. And somebody said, well, 15 cows will prove a bull clean or dirty. And so every bull that we thought was the best bull we had, we put a big X on these cows that had dwarfs, 15 of them, and we had tested them. So that slowed all the breeding down, because you might leave them and have to throw all that away again. So DNA has been wonderful. But it didn't come first. I think maybe ultrasound did. And it's Dr. Stauffer from Cornell University. And so I don't know how it all came together, but Linkletter, that was a very popular TV man and had cattle too. They decided to have this big show out at Las Vegas. And it's for all beef breeds, the 3 breeds. That's when there's 3 breeds. And so we decided to load up and take a little yearling bull out there. And this ultrasound deal was the same size as the semi-trailer at that time. They had to run them through and they measured them and everything. And we came out really good on that deal. And so we got really interested in ultrasound. And we was weighing the cattle and all that. And Clarendon College, a little junior college up the road, came up and the teacher said, I can get you an ultrasound machine if you'll let us use it as a teaching deal. So now I had a picture laid out for you yesterday, and I didn't show you where we had a big sign up, Clarendon College ultrasound. And then Dr. Stauffer came from New York and had a 3-day teaching deal for us. So that was ultrasound. Everything they did, like the DNA, EPD, Dr. Richard Wilhelm came up with that. That's probably the first thing I think maybe the Angus Association enjoyed. He got me through 2 classes in college. He was a year behind me, but 5 years, 10, 20 years smarter than I was. And he'd say, I'll get you through this. And he did. And he went to Iowa State, where he became famous for his EPDs. So we went on the EPDs. We were in that. And then, well, one of the funny things was they came up with, if you measured a bull's testicles, you could tell that he would probably sire more calves in a year than another bull. So I kept telling my husband about that. And because we were testing our own bulls for fertility, but we were just doing it. I'd run the injector. He'd run the catch the semen. So one day he said, I'm tired of listening to you about that. And he put a yardstick up there on the chute, and he got a feed sack and got the twine out of it. And so he laid this yardstick up there and handed me this string. He said, now you put this string around their testicles and then hold that thumb there, and then we'll measure and see what it was. I'm going to tell you, after you stick your head between the bull's legs, hind legs, on about 100 head, I told him, I said, I believe I can eyeball it. So, but we've been doing that ever since. I mean, we don't do it now. We have it done. But everything that's come about, spa was probably the best eye opener as far as making us money or helping us keep from losing so much money. When you know how many pounds that you're getting off of this grass, how many pounds from cows exposed to calves weaned. I don't know. You probably know. The last I heard, we've never gotten above 83 as a group of people. can any business run when you've got 17% of your everything losing your money? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So we've really worked on fertility, but everything that's come across, we've tried to be ahead of the game, and we have to. A banker told us once, "You'll never make it unless you got another income," and we never had another income. So I think we've been a little more serious about some things than some cattle people.
Most definitely. You take that.
Yeah.
So this is why people refer to you as a trailblazer, because, I mean, we've just talked about, you just mentioned early adopter of standardized performance analysis, SPA, that you called. I've got written down here, weighing your cows, which we're still encouraging people to do today, ultrasound technology, EPDs, DNA, scrotal circumference as part of national cattle evaluation, and I'm sure the list goes on. So that is why we refer to you as a trailblazer, Minnie Lou. So let me ask you now, one of the most important questions I think for the day: how many rattlesnakes have you killed in your lifetime?
I don't know that I can give you an exact number, but I will tell you one thing. It's more than Dr. Kuhn has killed.
Okay, very good. Well, that was Dr. Kuhn's question for you. So I think that's a fair response. Excellent. Okay, so what would you consider some of the most significant changes you've witnessed in the cattle industry? And I know there are a lot, but what would you think would be the most significant changes you have witnessed?
Well, a cowman has got to realize that he only produces the product, the raw product, and he's got to produce something that that the people want and they desire. You probably don't remember it, but one time I think poultry took over more poundage than the beef deal. That's sad. So we had to do something. CAB came along. There's other people, we were one of them, that thought, the packer I was raised, the packer's the meanest person in the world. I tell everybody, go in the packing business and see what you think then. But they have their problems too. But when we finally realized, and if you go in the meat business, you realize it pretty quick. We had a quality product. I mean, quality problem. We weren't, you go down any aisle and everything had a brand on it. Not beef. Beef was just beef. And you didn't know if you was going to pay for a ribeye that you couldn't chew, if you was going to get a blood shot or whatever. So this quality control and how people have gone to try to improve the quality of our beef. And actually, it makes everything cheaper. I was at a meeting. I've learned more going to these national meetings, state meetings, and listening to these people that have had experience. And this professor talked about that they left 300, and this is when cattle were a lot cheaper than they are today. But at that time, they was costing over $300 in the packer because of bruises, blood deals, you just name them. And what we could do, well, we were struggling in the branded beef business, and I came home and told them. So we immediately started our deal with everybody that produced beef for us, their rules and regulations, and that we would dock them. And I will never forget one big meat buyer on the East Coast. We had just landed him, and he so good. One day he called Mary Lou. He said, Mary Lou, we were short a butcher today, and I had to fill in. We found a broken off needle in the round. And he said, you're supposed to be having natural beef. Now tell me, well, we were so glad he called us. He could have called 48 hours, 60 minutes, or any of them. Not only ruin us, put us out of business, but the whole industry. So that became my theme, because I was asked to make a lot of talks at that time about what we were doing and why we were doing it. And I'll never forget, I thought, I'm talking to the Texas Southwestern cattle raisers, biggest producers in the world. Do I have the guts to say this? So I got up there and I just looked and I said, which one of you is guilty? And they all just drew up in a hard knot. But it's those kind of things, adding so much quality audit, and teaching people. People didn't mean to be bad. They didn't mean that. They just didn't know. It was easy to hit the hip with a,
Sure.
yeah. And we learned where to get a vaccine. We learned how to handle the cattle, and just so many things we all have learned in the last few years. That I think we're doing a good job. My problem, as I see it, over half the cattle are now in the hands of more hobbyists. And they don't care if they make money. They don't care what they do. They like to name their cows, and that's dangerous. And so that's what I worry about. But for the main end, now we still have a lot of way to go. But I think we've made lots and lots of progress. I'm just surprised. There's one place here in town you can get a good chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, and gravy for $7, and it's as good as any I've ever eaten in my life. And I keep thinking, well, to next week it won't be that good, but it has been. So we're getting more consistency in there. And so but we got to go to efficiency now. We are losing what, 2 million acres a year or something in farmland, ranch land. So now we're to the point where we got to learn how our cows are got to be more efficient. Everything we do has to be more efficient, and we can do it, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it now. I've been doing a little research. A Holstein cow just a few years ago averaged 5 gallons. Now it's 9 gallons. We have a rancher that had never weaned anything over a 400-pound calf. Today he's weaning 750-pound calves by using genetics and nutrition. And going back to our grass, we use liquid feed now, so we can move this deal wherever we want these cows to eat. They're lazy. They're just like us, and they're lazy. They don't want to, but they'll go to the feed. And so we're not tromping out ground with cake and all like we used to. So it's a new deal. It's all a new deal. It's not moving west anymore. Go west, young man, go west. No, that's all gone. So everybody's going to have to learn how we do it better with less.
Yeah, you described it like the needle that you found, and what how devastating that could have been. And even today we are trying to encourage people to get certified for beef quality assurance.
Yes.
To get their training for beef quality assurance, which addresses exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's very important.
Well, Texas Angus asked us to have one of those this year. And we worked hard. I think we had about 40 there. And of course, there's more than 40 producers in this county. I do not know how you get people to these things. And, you know, we offer to feed them. That usually draws the crowd.
Yeah.
But that, you know, we just got to work on that more, that how important it is. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got one more question for you, and then we'll see if there are
Okay.
questions from some of our audience. But what advice would you have for young people, maybe even those that are new to farm and ranch, entering the beef business today?
Well, it's always been a challenge. It will continue to be a challenge. And it's probably a greater challenge today than it was. But I would never tell anybody they can't do it, succeed, if they want to work hard enough, if they have common sense. This is what I see liking. These young people think the phone can answer every question they've got. But I want to tell you, that phone cannot fix a windmill if those cows are standing there hungry, well, thirsty. They cannot do it if they don't have a good fence. It's going to be, they're going to have to make everything count. But, you know, people want to eat. They have to eat. And the rumen, the goat, the lamb, and the cow are a rumen. And they can take all this roughage that nothing else can take and turn it into the best protein that there is. And it's tasty. You just think about it. I think there's beef cows can be found in every state in the union. You won't find that about other animals, meat animals, I don't think, not in every, but they can adapt, just like with DNA. Now, we raise short-haired cattle. Montana Angus people have long-haired cattle because that's what fits our country. We can do anything we want to with these cattle if we'll watch our genetics. But it's not sitting on the front porch, crossing your legs and saying, okay, you know, I checked my cows last week. That's not the way it's going to be. You're going to have to run it as a business. But people always have to eat. That's one of the main things of life. And they like to eat good. But I have had a lot of students come through that used to live with us and what have you. And I see it, that common sense is dropping and dropping and dropping. And they have no idea. I had a lady, she's 40 years old and never saw a recipe book until she came to my house. It's all prepared stuff. They buy prepared stuff and they don't know where the meat comes from. They don't care. And they think it's going to be there. But just common sense. You just, ranching and farming never was for the weak of heart. It takes a strong person, right, and a love for it. Is there something about it? There's something about a cow. Now, I haven't figured it out yet because I'm the worst. People, if they make money and have enough money, they want to get a few acres and a cow or two. Yeah. And they're the worst of our producers because it's just a hobby with them. So, but for the young person, I would never tell them they couldn't. I would say, if you've got it in you, you can do it. But don't think it's going to be easy. But it's real rewarding. Real rewarding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's why some of the smaller producers want to have a part, you know, of that culture and that rewarding feeling for having livestock. So I tell you what, let me, I'm going to ask my colleagues, Dr. Beck and Dr. Biggs, to see if we've got any questions that we'd like to have Minnie Lou address.
So, Dr. Lawman, we have time for probably a couple of questions. I'm going to start with, I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, Jeremy. It sounds like maybe she's worked for you, maybe as an intern at some point. Minnie Lou, because she asked about teaching a kid English from Cajun country. So there might be a story to that, but I'm going to ask one of her more serious questions. What's the most influential thing you think your family has accomplished at Bradley 3 Ranch for the beef industry?
So the question is, what do you consider the most influential thing you and your family has accomplished at Bradley 3?
Well, I was always taught to leave whatever you touch better than you found it.
Minnie Lou, Jeremy asked this question.
Who?
Jeremy?
Jeremy. Tell her she's not supposed to do that.
He'll let her know.
No,
Go ahead.
Jeremy's a very smart young lady. And she's been on the place a lot. You have to have a home for a cow. And that home for a cow has got to be that you got to take care of the grass and or whatever you use. And of course, grass is the standard out here. It'd be different in other places. But if you don't have a home for a cow, there's no way you can go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Jeremy, I'll have a little talk with you later.
All right, Dr. Lawman, we've got another, and we've talked about these really impactful and important management decisions. But if we had to pick one, what's the number one impactful management decision from the ranch perspective that Minnie Lou thinks they've made?
So you've made a lot of very impactful decisions, adopting technology, improving your grazing management, on and on. What do you think has been the most impactful one thing that you have tried and has wound up being successful?
Well, I think we always stay in the progress of trying to improve. And we've tried to do it with her grass along with her cattle. As far as one thing, I don't think in ranching it can be one thing.
Yeah.
I think it has to be several things. And so I am proud of what we've done. I wish we could have done better or do better. But limitations on cost and everything, you have to be sure you're profitable before you jump off into some things. And so we always just put so much money, like if I was leasing land, that's how I started with spraying, is I said, if I was leasing land, what would it cost me? I'll put that into improving the land. On the cattle, we just decided we had to do it ourselves within, because we had different ideas for West Texas than people that do in Iowa or Florida. They all have different reasons for doing what. And we think our cattle can go anywhere because they're raised out in the rough. They know how to walk. They know how to search for feed. I think that's, and I'll have to give Mary Lou and James a lot of credit. They've been there about 20 years, but what they carried back from the meat packing business, which they made successful as a branded beef. When we found out, and you stay in, Mary Lou and I used to go to these stores on the East Coast, West Coast, wherever, stand there all day and listen to the customer and cook beef and find out what they want. A customer wants what he wants. Maybe you don't agree with him, but whatever. He's your customer. And they forget a cow-calf man has got to think about the far end, pleasing the customer. And so that's what we've tried to do. And we've got people that have been our customers for over 60 years. And I guess we're pleasing them with the bulls. People still call us. We've been out of the meat business 20 years and we still get calls. We want some of your, but anyways, I think we were blessed and cussed too, by being all the way, taking our cattle all the way to the consumer.
Yes, quite an education.
And quite an education.
Dr.
Lot of-
Anything else?
I think that has us about wrapped up, Dr. Lawman, and we're right at the 1 o'clock
All right.
hour. So we've of course, not surprisingly, had one of our highest attendance for the session today. We've had folks from across the US, maybe even, I got to check those records, but probably internationally as well. And just want to thank our attendees today. Remind them of a couple of activities that we have going on at Oklahoma State with that are upcoming. In particular, next week we have our session here in Stillwater. Let me make sure I get all of these dates and times right. On Thursday, October 17th from 8:30 to 1 o'clock, we have our livestock and range field day. Additionally, I put in the chat, if you're looking for that beef quality assurance training that Minnie Lou mentioned, we have those here in Oklahoma State at a variety of locations across Oklahoma. You can check out the website for that. We have a variety of our sales coming on board, and the 31st annual Tautosec lectureship is coming Friday, October 25th with a lecture by Terry Ward, who's the Global Director of Strategy and Sustainability at ZenPro. So we have a number of exciting things coming on at Oklahoma State, as always. We're proud to have on our orange, and check those out at beef.okstate.edu. So Dr. Lawman, I will turn it over to you to sign out. It's been a great session from our side. We wish we were with you there in person.
Well, it has been a pleasure. Minnie Lou, thank you.
Well, it's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure. I've enjoyed it. I hope it.
Is there anything that you would like to say as we wind up here today? Anything else you would like to share?
Well, I would like to say one thing. Oklahoma State, of course, was Oklahoma A&M at the time. I wouldn't be sitting here today if they haven't given me an opportunity and a whole bunch of challenges. And they set me off. So I had to learn a lot when I got out and have to keep learning. But I think that's natural. But they gave me a chance. And that's all anybody can ask for, is a chance.
Well, that's great. And we're thankful to be able to call you one of our alumni and just continue to be amazed at your contributions and thankful for that you are one of ours and we can claim you as one of ours. And so thank you so much for going to all the trouble to spend time with us here today and share your thoughts. And I know this session is going to be valued for years to come and will be, will be downloaded by many, I know. So thank you, Dr. Biggs. Thank you, Dr. Beck. Hope to see you all here later this fall as we continue our Ranchers Thursday Lunchtime series.
Thank you. That was an outstanding